Great. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Economics of Platforms seminar. And today we have JPL Choi, who will talk about Sherlocking and platform information policy, and followed by the discussion by Chengxi Wang. We'll have 40 minutes for the talk, 5 more or less minutes for discussion, and then some time for the questions. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will then later relay to JPL. Okay, JPL, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. Also, thanks to everyone for coming to my presentation. So as you can see from the screen, this paper is a joint work with Teddy Kim at Emory and Arjun Mukherjee. So in this paper, we consider what is often called the hybrid platforms. So these platforms not only operate as marketplaces, connecting independent third-party sellers with consumers, but also run their own retail divisions that directly compete with those same sellers. So one aspect of hybrid platforms we are focusing on is what's known as Sherlocking. So for those who are unfamiliar, this term is used by Apple iOS app developers. So it refers to the practice where a platform copies popular third-party apps and then introduces its own app as an in-house alternative. So this term originated when Apple developed an app called Sherlock to replace a third-party app named Watson. So when Apple introduces a similar app, we say that the developer has been Sherlocked. Okay, this means that the original product may quickly lose its market relevance and often signaling the end of independent apps, a situation that can be effectively serve as a death sentence for them. Similar concern has been also raised regarding Amazon, which frequently introduces its own private label products that compete directly with those offered by third-party sellers. So critics have frequently argued that hybrid platforms misuse proprietary data from third-party sellers to guide their copying decisions, prompting calls for regulatory intervention. So one proposal is to ban imitation, which would be essentially a structural remedy that would require the separation of a platform's marketplace and the retail divisions. And another proposal is a behavioral one to prohibit data sharing between the platform's marketplace and its product division. So to address this issue, we developed a stylized model that examines the interplay among fee structures, data policies, and the market entry decisions. So somehow screen is okay. So our main message is that platforms have many instruments at their disposal, and regulatory efforts aimed at one issue can lead to unintended consequences. So in our study, we specifically focus on impact of regulation on platform fees, which is often called referral fees. So we show that an outright ban on imitation or data sharing may actually reduce the overall welfare. The reason is that the platform may adjust its referral fees in response to these policies. So for the sake of time, I will skip the literature review, except saying that the Mas and the Velarde paper is close to 2 hours. And one major difference is that we endogenize the referral fee, which is the main channel through which regulatory policies impact welfare. Okay, so the plan of the talk is as follows. Okay, I will first introduce the model, and then we will consider 2 benchmark cases. One is a no entry case, and the other one is platform is unable to make any commitment to its entry decision. Okay, and then we will analyze a full commitment solution. Okay, and then this full commitment solution is a little bit unrealistic. So then we consider information sharing policy as a substitute to a commitment mechanism, and then we will derive some policy implications. Okay? So this is my plan of the talk. And before going to the model, let me pause to see if there are any questions. So
no questions so far in the chat.
Okay, so if no more questions, then I will jump to the model. So we set up a very stylized model. So there are two strategic players. One is a platform owner, denoted by P, and the other one is a representative seller, S. Okay, or we can consider a continuum of sellers. And we consider a two-period model with no discounting. And the time length of the first and the second period are respectively given by 1 month delta and delta. And there is a ad valorem referral fee charged by the platform, which is denoted by R. This is on the seller's profit. And then the seller incurs a fixed cost K to develop the product with marginal cost is equal to 0. So actually in the paper, we also consider marginal cost of positive, but this one actually eliminate the possibility of double marginalization due to a referral fee. So this will just facilitate. So we make this assumption for the Apple app case. Usually the software marginal cost is equal to 0, so it could be a realistic assumption. But even though marginal cost is positive, I think that our qualitative result will remain intact. And then the seller's profit as a monopolist is given by theta. Okay, so this can be interpreted as the profitability of the seller's product, and also we can think of this one as kind of a market size. And this theta is drawn according to the uniform distribution over 0 and 1. And of course, we can also consider a more general distribution function of theta. So there are two periods. So in period 1, the platform posts a referral fee R, and this remains the same across the two periods. And the seller observes his type, theta, and the referral fee R charged by the platform, and then decides whether to or not to enter the market. Okay? And if it enters the market, then period 1 perhaps will be realized. In the period 2, the platform will observe the realization of theta, so how profitable the product is, because the platform runs a marketplace and it can collect all proprietary data. And then decides whether to launch its own product by incurring its own development cost, K over P. So in the paper, we allow KP can be different from K, but for this talk, I will just assume that KP is the same as the seller's development cost K. And if the platform enters, then we assume that it can steer consumers towards its own product. And this, we are going to actually assume an extreme form of self-preferencing, and the platform can capture the whole market. That's what the simplifying assumption we are making. And then period 2 perhaps will be realized. So this is the timing of the game. So in the first period, total payoffs is given by 1 month delta theta. If you remember, 1 month delta is the length of the first period. So theta is the total payoff available in the market. So this total payoff will be split between the seller and the platform according to 1 minus R and R. So R is the ad valorem fee. Now in the second period, total payoffs will be delta of theta. Once again, delta is the length of the second period. So we can consider two scenarios. If the platform does not imitate, then the seller's profit and the platform's profit will be the same as in the first period. Okay, the only difference will be the period length will be a delta rather than 1 month delta. However, if the platform imitates and enters the market, then the seller will earn nothing, and while platform will receive the full payoff. Okay, but the platform needs to incur development cost of K. So overall payoffs with seller's entry can be given. This is the seller's payoffs, and this will be platform's payoffs. For the seller, the second period of payoffs will be depend on whether the platform enters or not. So here, this is the indicator function, okay, illustrating whether the platform enters or not. Okay, this can be equal to 1 if the platform enters. Otherwise, it will be equal to 0. Okay, so the second period of seller's payoffs will depend on whether the platform enters or not. Okay. And also, platform's payoffs will also depend on whether it enters or not. If it does not enter, then it will just collect a referral fee. If it enters, then it will capture the market payoffs. Okay. So essentially, whether the platform will enter the market or not will depend on the comparison between this payoff and this payoff. So we make some simplifying assumption to make our analysis more meaningful. So to avoid the trivial cases. So the first inequality essentially says that there will be no seller entry if the platform enters the market in the second period for sure. Okay. In other words, the threat of copying is significant. So if the seller knows that the platform will enter in the second period, then it will have no incentive to enter. So that is the first inequality. The second inequality essentially says that the platform will have incentive to enter the market if theta is sufficiently large, and also if the referral fee is sufficiently low. And this assumption naturally implies that delta is bigger than 1/2. In other words, the second period is longer than the first period. That is implicitly assumed. Okay, so we are going to consider a no entry case and no commitment case as two benchmark cases. So now let's assume that there is no entry is possible by the platform. Okay, and this benchmark can be actually useful a benchmark to analyze later when we consider a ban on imitation. In other words, if the regulation says that the platform should be run as a pure marketplace, this would be the case. In other words, the platform cannot enter the market. So in that case, now the seller faces no threat of entry from the platform. So given the referral rate R, the seller will enter if and only if the following condition holds. So this will be the payoff for the seller for the whole 2 periods. And if this payoff is bigger than K, then the seller will enter the market. So we can derive the seller's threshold cutoff type, theta denoted as a theta of S. And this will depend on R. Okay? So the higher R is, the less entry there will be. Okay, because it will require more profit to recoup its entry cost. And then the problem is basically, so R will determine the extent of the entry. Okay, of course, higher R will be better for the platform, but higher R will reduce the extent of entry. So viewed in this way, this is exactly the same as the standard monopoly problem. So we can derive a platform, the monopoly problem, as in this way. Okay, so R will determine the extent of entry between theta of S threshold value and the highest type. Okay? And we can derive the optimal referral rate on the no entry by platform condition. Okay, so in other words, this will be the optimal referral rate if the platform is not allowed to enter the market. Okay, so actually, so this is the entry configuration without any entry by platform. Okay, so the referral rate will determine the threshold value of the seller type, and the seller type is lower than this value, then the seller will not enter the market. If the theta is higher than this value, then it will enter the market. And this threshold value and the extent of entry, this area will be determined by the referral rate. Now let me consider the second case. So this is the case when the platform is unable to make any commitment. So in other words, the platform will enter the market whenever the entry is profitable in the second period. So given the seller's type theta, so platform will prefer to enter if and only if the following condition holds. Okay, so this is the second period pair by entering the market. This is the entry cost. The right-hand side is the referral fee it can collect. Okay, so entering the market directly is better than collecting the referral fee. Then the platform will decide to enter the market. So we can derive another threshold value. This will be the cutoff value for the platform. And this cutoff value will be actually higher than the seller's cutoff point that we derived earlier. The reason being that platform will be able to collect the profit only for the second period. Or for the seller, if there's no entry by the platform, it can collect for both periods. So here, one thing to notice is that the higher the referral fee is, there will be less incentive to enter for the platform. In other words, the referral fee collection, this will be an opportunity cost for the platform entering the market. So higher referral fee can be, in a sense, serve as a deterrent, okay, for the platform's entry, because the platform will have a less incentive to enter if the platform fee is referral fee is high. Okay? So given the referral fee R, type of theta seller's pair from entry is given by this way. So if theta is less than theta p, then there is no incentive for the platform to enter the market. So it can collect the whole pair for the two periods. But if theta is sufficiently lucrative, then platform will have incentive to enter the market. Then it can collect only the first period payoff. And then under the assumption we made earlier, so this payoff is less than the seller's entry cost. So that means if theta is higher than this value, then the platform will have incentive to enter the market. Then the optimal strategy for the seller is not entering the market. So the seller will enter only if its type is between these two threshold values. Okay. If the theta is more lucrative than theta p, then because the platform, the incentive to enter the market, it's better not enter the market. So this will be the entry configuration. Okay. So this is the theta. Okay. So then if theta is very low, then it will not enter the market. If theta is in the intermediate range, okay, so then it is sufficiently high to justify entry by the seller, but it is not sufficiently high to induce the platform's entry. So it will enter the market. And surprisingly, if the theta is too lucrative, then it will not enter the market because the platform's entry threat. Okay. So the entry, when the platform is unable to make a commitment, so only the intermediate type will enter the market. And then we can derive the platform's maximization problem in this way. Okay. So now what's happening is, as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, higher R will make this threshold value increase. That means the platform will have less incentive to enter the market. And what's happening is then under no commitment by platform, in other words, the platform is unable to control its entry behavior ex post. What is happening in the optimal case is actually R will be increased, the theta p will be driven to all the way to 1. So it will increase its referral rate to kill off its own incentive to enter the market. Okay, so in other words, in equilibrium, actually this region will disappear. Okay, so that's what actually we show here. So theta p will be driven all the way to 1. So there will be actually no Sherlocking incentives by the platform. So one result we derive is that when we compare the optimal referral rate under no commitment and the no entry case, if the platform is unable to make any commitment to its future entry decision, then referral fee will be actually higher. Okay? This one is to kill off its own incentive to enter the market. So in both cases, because under no commitment case, even though the platform can enter the market, its referral fee will be so high to kill off its entry incentives. So in both regimes, in equilibrium, there will be no entry by the platform. Okay, and then what is happening is that the referral fee is only higher under no commitment case. Okay, so that means the no entry case will actually part to dominate the no commitment benchmark. Okay, so there's no entry in either regime, but we know we define the RNE as the optimal referral rate under no entry case. So that means the referral rate under no commitment case, this one is suboptimal for the platform. So the platform, the paper will go down. Also, consumers will be better off under no entry condition because the referral fee is low. And also, the seller will be also better off. So this is the first result we get when we compare two benchmarks. Now let's consider a full commitment case. So now let's assume that the platform can make a full commitment to its entry decision. In particular, let's assume that the platform is able to make its entry decision. So this is alpha is the probability of entry, which depends on the seller's type and the referral rate. So we consider a type contingent entry policy. Okay? So this is essentially a conditional probability of entry by the platform. Okay? Of course, this is an unrealistic assumption, okay? But let's consider as kind of a hypothetical situation, what would be the best the platform can do? Okay? So this would be the ideal scenario for the platform. And then given the probability of entry, alpha, which is a type contingent, the seller will enter if the payoffs is bigger than its entry cost. Okay, so this will be basically the first period. First period payoff for the seller. The second period payoffs will depend on the platform's entry probability. And then the platform will choose the probability of entry to make the seller's payoff just break even. Okay, so it will increase its probability of entry just to make the seller to break even. Okay, so basically this is what's going to happen. Okay, so of course, if theta is less than theta s, okay, so then the seller will not enter the market. Okay. If theta is between these two threshold values, then platform will not have an incentive to enter the market. But in this case, the seller will have an incentive to enter the market. But if the seller enters for sure, so then if the platform enters for sure, then the seller will not enter the market. So it will adjust its probability of entry just to make sellers have a sufficient incentive to enter the market. Okay. As you can see, this probability of entry will increase in theta. Okay, so optimal alpha, the probability entry will be given by this one. So this is the probability entry to make the seller's paper just equal to 0, to make it just a break even. Okay. And given this probability of entry, optimal probability entry, then platform the optimal commitment problem, which is what would be the optimal ad valorem fee, we can derive the following condition. Okay, so then one conclusion, okay, we derive is that if the platform is able to commit to each entry policy, then the referral fee turns out to be even lower than the referral fee on the no commitment case. Okay, so we consider the three cases. One is a no entry case, and the second one was no commitment case. The third one is a full commitment case. And the referral P ranks turn out to be like this. Okay, so now we considered the case that the commitment case, which would be the ideal scenario for the platform. However, this type contingent probability entry would be kind of impractical and would be difficult to implement. So what we do in our paper is we consider platform's information policy, which is basically how the platform can share information between the marketplace division and the retail division. Okay, so you can think of this one is how the platform can share the information between the two divisions. Okay, how the proprietary information should be aggregated and conveyed within two divisions. So we consider a situation in which the platform is unable to make a full commitment, but somehow can optimally choose its information policy, information sharing policy. And when we do this analysis, so we are going to endow the platform with full flexibility in its choice of information sharing policy, because this is in line with the information design. Okay, so in other words, we are trying to see what would be the full potential for information policy if somehow the platform can design an information policy and if it can fully commit to such information policy. So in our environment, it suffices to restrict attention to binary signals, which is either x equal to 0 or 1. Okay, so one way to interpret it is that if the signal x is equal to 0, then it is basically a recommendation to enter the market. If x is equal to 1, x is equal to 0, then it is not enter the market. And x is equal to 1, this is basically an action recommendation, okay, to enter the market.
So, sorry, JP, just a clarification question. So information policy is informative about theta? Is just arbitrary experiment?
Yeah, that's right. So
about theta?
yeah, so that theta will, yeah, that's right.
Yes, and the platform, does it observe the decision of the seller to enter the market?
Yeah, of course.
Top of that?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So in the first period, the seller will enter the market. Then given entry, now the platform knows theta. Based on theta, it will send a signal to
right. No, it happens. The information policy must reveal at the very least that the seller entered the market, but it might also reveal more. Is it
so
how
if
to
the
think
seller,
of it?
so if the seller does not enter the market, okay, then it's just irrelevant. Okay, so here actually, this is a good point. Okay, so there are also other papers on hybrid platforms. So other papers actually, it is not necessary for the seller to enter the market for the platform to sell its own product. Okay, here, the information structure we have is that there are so many products out there. So platform needs to rely on decentralized information. So it is unrealistic for the platform to figure out what kind of demand there will be out there. So what they can introduce. So our assumption is that the platform can introduce its own product only when some product is introduced.
Okay, great.
So here, I mean, this is so this is signal structure. Okay, so given theta, so there's a seller enter the market, then theta is observed, and then based on theta, signal will be sent. X is equal to 1 or 0 will be sent. Okay, so of course, I mean, if there is a so then, so the first question we ask is under what conditions the platform can implement the full commitment outcome. Okay, so the full commitment outcome, if you remember, if theta is less than theta p, then I mean it has no incentive to enter the market. If theta is bigger than theta p, then it needs to control its entry so that the seller will be just break even. Okay, that probability is given by alpha theta. Okay, so if we assume that the recommendation is given, is x equal 1 is a recommendation to enter the market, x is equal to 0 is not to enter the market. If the information policy fully replicated the full commitment solution, then this probability of a recommendation should be exactly equal to alpha theta r. Okay, And if theta is less than theta p, then recommendation should be equal to 0. Okay, so this would be the information policy that would fully replicate full commuted solution. Now the question is whether such a signal is sent, there'll be incentive to follow through. Okay, so we have to consider what is called the obedience constraints. Okay, so there are two obedience constraints. Okay? So given theta is bigger than theta s, so this is basically conditional on seller's entry. Okay, and given recommendation is not to enter the market. Okay, so then the expected value of the seller's type should be less than theta p. Okay, otherwise it will not have incentive to obey the recommendation. Okay, and also if theta is, the recommendation is equal to 1. Okay, so then the expected value of the seller type should be bigger than theta p. Okay, so there are two obedience constraints, but here the concern is more to control the platform's incentive to enter the market. In other words, there are too much incentive to enter the market, so this constraint will not be binding. Okay, so only this constraint will be the binding constraint. Okay, so basically the conclusion is that when we adopt this kind of information structure, okay, signal structure, if this constraint is not binding, then a full commuted outcome will be implemented. If this condition is not satisfied, then you have to come up with another signal structure. So that is basically the main point. So this OC null obedience constraint can be written in this way. Okay, so this is mathematical expression. So let me explain with the graph. Okay, so this is a full implementation. Okay, probability by entry. Okay, and if you are going to implement this one with information policy, the signal structure should be where if theta is in this, so of course, if theta is here, there will be no entry, so it is irrelevant. If theta is in this range, then there will be entry by the seller. Okay, so then because there should be no entry by the platform, so signal should be equal to 0. So in this area, the full commuted solution is this is the probability of entry. Okay, so to replicate this outcome, well, in this area, x equals 0, no entry signal should be given, and here x equals 1 signal should be given. Okay, but if this area is too big, so then x equals 0 signal may not be too bad. In other words, even though recommendation is not to enter the market, maybe the platform will have incentive to enter the market. In other words, not incentive to obey the recommendation. Okay, so basically, whether this signal x equals 0 is given, okay, even when platform has an incentive to enter the market, if it had known exact theta. Okay, so given this signal structure, if the obedience constraint is satisfied, then we are going to implement the full commuted solution. But given this information structure, if there's too much incentive to enter the market, then we have to come out with the full commuted solution will not be implemented. Okay? So essentially, this is the condition. So in other words, so the condition here can be interpreted in this way. So suppose that this is the information structure, the information policy structure. Okay? And then given x equals 0 signal, if you suppose that you do not obey the recommendation, okay, so then there could be two scenarios. Okay? If theta turns out to be in this area, then when you enter the market, actually you are going to have actually positive profit. But if x turns out to be in this area, when you enter the market, actually you are going to lose. Okay, so that comparison is basically this area. Okay, so this is when you disobey, if loss from entry is bigger than profit from entry, then the platform there will be no incentive to go against the recommendation. Okay, so once again, so if this constraint is satisfied, then we can implement the full commuted solution. So now the next question is, if this constraint is not satisfied, then what would be the optimal information policy? Okay. So, okay, so the next graph is now actually we see that in numerical simulation, so we show that in the space of K and the delta, under what conditions the obedience constraint is binding, and under what condition it is not binding. Okay, so as you can see here, delta is small, that means the second period is short, and also K is high. So that would be the case where the problem will have less incentive to enter the market. So in that case, actually, the obedience constraint is holds. So the full commitment solution can be implemented. But in this area, there'll be too much temptation to enter the market. So then the obedience constraint will not be satisfied. Okay, so essentially the next question is, if we have in this parameter region, so obedience constraint is not satisfied, then what would be the optimal information policy? Okay, so that is the question we are asking. So we do a two-step analysis. So the first one is, what would be the optimal information policy for a given referral fee? Okay. And then we explore what would be the profit maximizing fee for the platform. So let me look at the first question. So suppose there is a given referral fee and the obedience constraint is not satisfied. Okay. And then it turns out that the signal structure is given by this one. So let me explain this one by using the graph. Okay. So this is the full commitment solution. Okay. So if this obedience constraint is not satisfied, that means X equal 0 signal, no entry signal is given too often. Okay. So we have to give a more entry signal. So who will be given the entry signal? That types turned out to be in the intermediate region. Okay. So in other words, for this intermediate region, the platform will send a recommendation of entry, and because of this entry, then there'll be actually no entry by the seller. In other words, you need to exclude some sellers, and those sellers turned out to be actually the intermediate range. And this is the kind of like some interesting result in the information design literature. Usually in information design literature, it's more like a more monotonic case, but here actually we have like a non-monotonic exclusion of sellers. Okay. So then given this would be the optimal information policy, given a referral fee, and then the next question is what would be the optimal referral fee? Okay, so that's how we do the analysis. And here, so Ri is the optimal referral fee under the information policy. And this referral fee will balance the two trade-offs. So in fact, since we are excluding the intermediate range, so when the obedience constraint is not binding and the full commitment solution is not implemented, so then the information on the information policy, the preference payoff can be written in this way. Okay, so this is the profit on the full commitment solution minus some number. So this loss is coming from the exclusion of the intermediate types. Okay, so the balance the platform needs to do is the following. So when R is deviating from the optimal commitment solution, okay, so that would be obviously reduce the payoff, okay, but it can actually relax the obedience constraint. So our conjecture is that on the information policy, the referral fee will be actually higher than the commitment solution. That is our conjecture, because when referral fee is increased a little bit, so the loss here will be a second order effect, but it can reduce the obedience constraint. So basically, our conjecture is that by increasing R, these two areas can shrink. Okay. However, in a very general setup, we were unable to derive such a conclusion, because the theta low star and the theta up star, I mean, these two behave in a very complicated way. So we were unable to prove that So this is our conjecture. Ri is bigger than RC, but we were not able to prove. But we do analysis for the discrete case, binary case, and also we do some simulation. So we actually confirm the intuition here, but analytically we are not able to prove this. Okay. So there are some numerical results we do here. And now, so let me move on to implications for regulatory measures. So I think that I'm already running out of time. So
yes, well, you can still
so
have
yeah,
a
so
couple
yeah,
of
so I'll
minutes.
just
Finish.
wrap up. Okay. So basically, the point is that now, so we consider two salient policy regulatory policy. One is a prohibition on imitating, and the second one is a prohibition on the use of proprietary data. Okay. So to analyze this one is basically the platform needs to learn pure marketplace. So we can easily analyze this case because we analyzed the no entry case. So the implication of such a policy will depend on the relative ranking of Ri and Rne. So in other words, what we are looking at is when there's a regulation, there could be adjustment in the referral fee. So we have to compare these two. And the problem is that there's no clear-cut Ri and Rne. So we can consider two cases. If the full commitment can be implemented through information policy, okay? So in other words, the evidence constraint is not binding, then we know that full implementation is possible. So Ri will be the same as Rc, and we know that under commitment, this referral fee is less than Rne. Okay, so in that case, it will be rapidly reducing for consumers. In other words, actually, a ban on imitation can be actually rapidly reducing. Okay. However, since in general, when the evidence constraint is not binding, Ri and Rle cannot be ordered. Okay, so we cannot rule out that imitation may be improved welfare. So essentially, what we say is that whether the regulation will be welfare enhancing or welfare reducing, that it will be a case-by-case scenario. Okay, and also we can also derive a similar result on data sharing. So if data sharing is prohibited, then a platform's entry decision would be based only on a seller's entry threshold. Okay? So it should enter or not, okay, without having any information. So in that case, depending on the parameters, there can be two types of equilibrium. One equilibrium is what we call a futile equilibrium. This one essentially, okay, the market will collapse. Okay, so in this equilibrium, S will never enter the market because S will expect the platform will enter the market, and also platform will also believe that if there's any entrant, then it will just believe that this is the most lucrative type. Okay, so basically there will be futile equilibrium. In that case, obviously, the regulation will backfire because it will lead to total market collapse. We can also consider an equilibrium platform never enters and the sellers enter the market. Even in that case, so in the second equilibrium case, then we have to compare once again the other valorem fee on the no entry and also other valorem fee on the information policy. Once again, we are going to have an unambiguous ranking, so we cannot say for sure. So basically, this is kind of like our message, and in the paper we also discuss some extensions. Okay, so let me just wrap up. So policy issues, there has been issues of the use or misuse of a proprietary on third-party sellers by hybrid platforms, and this could adversely affect the sellers' incentive to enter the market. And there have been some policy response proposals for prohibition on imitation and also prohibition on the use of a proprietary data. Okay. So our message is where there could be some interplay between fee structure and data policy and the entry decision, and an outright ban can sometimes it could lead to undesirable outcome. So we just give some cautionary warning against simple policy and measures. Okay, so
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, Jipo. Thank you very much. And now we'll have a discussion by Chengxi Wang. Chengxi, you have
okay, so let me stop
around 5 minutes. Yes.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. Yes, I read the early version of this paper, and it was a great pleasure. And thanks for letting me read this again, and double my pleasure. I think so. I think this Sherlocking is probably it's a special kind of self-preferencing, because I can see that there are three elements needed for, at least for the Sherlocking model here. So one is the hybrid business model, and also it requires that there's self-preferencing components built into the model. It doesn't have to be self-preferencing; it could be some kind of bundling strategy as well. And third is to because having access, the platform having access to the firm's third-party sellers data, and they can use it to enter the market. Right. So for self-preferencing, you need the first two. So the third one is new to this Sherlocking practice. And then I guess the paper then starting with those commitment problem, and when one commitment power is absent, then the platform can replace it by using a different commitment power. So it's somehow, I guess, it's suggested that there's this self-regulatory role that the platform can play, which has been, I guess, suggested in the past. So one question I have here would be that it seems that when the platform is lacking certain commitment power, and then they try to use another commitment power, their benefit seems to go hand in hand with the consumers or the users' welfare. And is there any case in this analysis where the platform's benefit actually depart from the consumer benefit, when sort of you are trying to use this new commitment tool to improve your profit, but actually that's bad for consumers? Is there a case like that in the model? And also then, when, let's say, in an extreme case, when all those commitment power doesn't work, then probably we will rely on the government's regulation. That's the policy part that Jay has talked about at the end. So they talked about two kinds of policy. One is the ban the hybrid model. The other one is to limit the platform's use of firms' data. However, both of these policy regulation might have an unintended consequence, because there's a endogenous response of the platform fee. So this probably also suggests that when we design the regulation, we probably need a combination of different policy tools. For example, combine the bans with the cap on the fees might be a way to go when we think about how to optimally regulate those platforms. Finally, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we have three elements built into the model. So this self-preferencing part, maybe there is also a policy. There could be a policy discussion here about the self-preferencing, that because if you ban the platform from recommending more favorably of its own product, that will increase the competition between the platform's product and the third-party product, and therefore the platform might find it's not profitable to actually imitate the third-party sellers' product. So that could be another policy that we can think about. Okay, that's all I have.